Hey everybody, this is 1059, and today I'm going to be doing my first review ever, and it's of a brand new product. I haven't seen many reviews for it out there, so I thought I'd give it a spin and review the Korg Kaoss DJ, which is a brand new DJ controller. As you can see, it's tiny, it's very cool. I've had a little bit of time to play around with it, and I thought I would post a bit of an unorthodox review. I'm going to do just kind of an intro, then I'm going to go through some of the features, not in too much detail because I'm sure a lot of people can do it a lot better than I can. So once I go through the features, I'm then going to go into some suggestions that I've thought up for future models, because the Korg has done a great job. I do think they could improve on quite a number of things in the unit, and I would like them to, because I think a version 2 of this would be awesome. And then I'm kind of going to just sum things up. So without further ado, here is the unit. If you can see, again, very small. I don't have the biggest hands, but you know, it's about the size of two of my hands. Not big at all. And you can see if I put it on top of this, which is a Pioneer DJJ SX2, just so you can kind of see the difference in size. It's essentially about the same as half of the mixer portion of the DJJ SX2, which is considered, I guess, in terms of compactness, somewhere along the middle. It's not as big as a DJJ SZ, for example, but it's still a pretty big controller, and the Korg, I would say, is possibly one of the smallest in existence. So very cool, great for traveling. The reason I bought it, I already have the DJJ SX2, but I wanted the Korg because I travel back and forth a lot, mostly to Japan. And I should just say as a side note, a lot of people ask me why in Japan people call me Tengoku. My DJ name is 1059. If you read that in Japanese, 10, just read it as 10. 5 is pronounced go, and 9 is ku, so Tengoku means heaven. Just as an aside, because I do get that question a lot. But anyway, back to the review. I'm just going to plug this guy in so you can see what he's all about. And so it's USB powered, which is great. Again, just less to carry around. And just go ahead and plug in your RCAs. In the side here, there are no Booth or XLR ports on this whatsoever. But again, because it's a compact unit, it's not really for professional gigging. I'd say more kind of house parties, or even using on the road. Again, more than enough in my opinion. So just to go over some of the more basic features, as you can see, it's got jog wheels, or Korg's own version of jog wheels, and in the middle a Korg FX pad, which is very cool, and I'll get back to in a second. But the basic jog wheel function is there. It's pretty impressive, as a lot of people I think have commented on in the past. It does what you need it to do. And you have your shift, your play, pause.
Everything is quiet.
You have your sync button, and you have a cue. So really just the bare necessities. And then on this side, your headphone cue, FX. This is only for the controller, so the Serato DJ effects. You can do those per side. Unfortunately, the Kaoss effects are applied to the master only. And then you have here, you can set your loop. For example, I should also say that the song I'm playing in the video is Lovesick Part 5 by Nujabes. May you rest in peace. Great Japanese producer, and the rapper on it is Shingo too. So here we go, hot cues. So again, you get 3 of them. It's all right, not great. When you're not in any mode, you're just in the regular scratch mode, and then as you can see, I'll show you here. Just go to the beginning. You can nudge. You can also nudge using the platter by pressing the middle area. I'm sorry, getting out of there. So nudge using the platter. So 2 ways to nudge, and then back to scratch mode. Then you can loop. So if you see here, you can control the length of the loop. You're going to do 1, and then what you do is press the middle. You can then tighten it up, and then exit the loop. One other cool feature in the loop mode, again, you select the type of loop you want, and if you hold shift, you can loop. So, which is kind of cool. So you have your roll function, your loop function, and again the hot cues. And if you want to get rid of hot cues, you hold shift. So again, pretty expansive functionality. You have your tempo slider, and then here are all your knobs, typical EQ knobs, headphone, master, gains, and you can also go through the integration of Serato DJ is great. You can go through your songs using the browse knob, as you can see here. Very cool. And then just A and B down in the controller to load. So that's, again, a very summary explanation. And then the Kaoss effects. For example, I think this one's just a basic high pass, low pass. Like I said, I just got this, so it's going to take me quite a long time to get through all these effects. As you can see, there are tons. Very cool stuff. You have everything else you need. I'm not really going to go into much more detail than that because I've kind of explained the basic features. And again, as you can see, you can either control on the side, you get your little EQ lights. This is master right now. And now I just have the one side. So you can change that by pressing shift in the headphone button. Okay, so again, it's just a very, very simple controller in terms of its design, but it can do a whole lot. It does take a while to kind of figure out all the features because they're not as easily understandable when you press shift, for example, say as on a DDJ SX2, where you get all these kind of secondary functions written down. Would be nice to have. Okay, so now what I'm going to go into is I'm going to kind of give you my thoughts on the controller itself and what I think could be improved, because though I do like it a lot, I do think that Korg's effort, again, it's a very, I applaud their effort, but I do think they could make some changes, and I've actually proposed some changes over here. So I'm just going to let you take a look at this diagram that I've created, and I'll go ahead and explain what I would like to propose in terms of V2 model of the Kaoss DJ. So first of all, as you can see, this is basically the layout as it stands. Just ignore that for a second, I'll explain it later, but the current layout is how it looks on this side. And my proposed changes are over here. Let me go first just mention, though I do think the size is great, it's just a bit too small and unnecessarily small, because if you take a look here, I always picture this as something that would kind of go with, or just go in a backpack with a computer. But as you can see, and it accomplishes that. As you can see, it's about a bit under the width of my MacBook Air. And, that's saying a lot because MacBook Airs are not very big at all. So I think it would be a little bit better if it was actually a little bit longer, and maybe even a touch wider would be okay too. And if you see these pads on the bottom, also very nice, but I'd really like to be able to just kind of rest it on my computer, ideally having the pads on the sides beside the keyboard, because right now I think they're on the keyboard. But just to be able to work like this, control Serato DJ, and just work with the controller, say on an airplane or something, I think that would be awesome. And there's still more than enough room to extend it a little bit. So now going back to my diagram, I have extended it a little bit, and the reason for that is because I think that the one row of buttons just isn't enough. I think if you want to stay competitive with other people in the same range, like the Mixtrack Pro 3 by Newmark, you're really going to have to add at least one extra row of buttons for hotkey functionality, because as it stands, as you can see, I just got rid of hotkey altogether. Touch hotkeys, the reason that people are not so keen on the new Pioneer XDJ 1000s is that touch hotkeys just aren't ideal. You don't want to make a mistake. I don't have huge hands, but if you can see this, it's not that hard to kind of slip up and touch the wrong part. So you don't want to touch the wrong hotkey. And, you know, again, considering how compact it is, why not just add a little bit more space, add another row? And I've suggested doing the hotkeys on the top row, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then with Shift 5, 6, 7, 8. And then on the bottom, keep the keys the same, although I have reversed the order. Again, I'm not really sure why they chose the order they did. Let me just bring you back here for a sec. But you can see Shift, Play, Sync, Q. A little bit strange when you're trying to, at least for me, I use Q and Play together, or, you know, one after the other almost all the time. So it's good to have them close, but I think to have them together would be much better, because occasionally I press sync by accident because they are so close together. So what I proposed is Shift down there, sync, then play, pause, and Q. So again, you can just do Q, play, really easy. Sync and Shift off to the side because you're not going to be pressing them as much. Okay, so that's my first suggestion. Then I noticed that if you have Shift down here and you use that to control the 5, 6, 7, 8 hot cues, you're not going to be able to have a way to erase them using the controller. So I decided to add a similar button to what we have up for the loop button, or the selector button for the strip down here, and that could function as a hot cue erase button. So you press that and press, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, erase those, press that and Shift, you can erase 5, 6, 7, or 8. So I thought that would be good. Second recommendation or suggestion, please make the sliders full size like what they are on a DDJ SX or a CDJ. You know, I think it's 100 millimeters, but because we're able to, or because I propose adding a bit of length to it, I really think you could fit 1,000 millimeter pitch or 100 millimeter pitch slider, and you could achieve that by relocating the buttons from here up to the top. I actually think it looks pretty good like this. And you got the headphones beside the headphone, volume, it's actually kind of nice. So I do think you could fit a 100 millimeter pitch slider right there. With that said, because I've gotten rid of the hot cue, I would then do loop functionality. I would leave it the same, but my suggestion would be either, if you're going to leave touch functionality, make some kind of separator, some discernible kind of separator so you know which part you're touching. Or even better, just turn these into buttons, like rubberized buttons. I don't think touch functionality is that great, especially for loops. And I forgot to mention earlier that you can do like a touch strip search. I think it's called needle search, but the needle search functionality is really poor on this. You can't drag, you have to touch certain spots. And I don't know if that can be changed with a firmware update or a software update, but you can do Shift. I'll show you right here. You can hold Shift and go through, if you can see over there, just by holding Shift and then putting your finger on the jog wheel, you can go through the track, and that's good enough. You don't need needle search on top of that. So I propose just turn these into buttons, please. You can keep the loop functionality and then that button to turn it off and turn it back to scratch and pitch bend. And again, for this portion, I said you could roll by holding Shift while in loop mode, and you can. The problem is, while you're rolling, you can't tighten the roll, which is something I like to do a lot with my other controllers. So I figured if you just held the middle button and rolled, again, I'll show you on this as we go. But if you see, I'm pressing play, we're in loop mode. I'm rolling now at 1/2. If I now use, here, you can see here, this button, let me plug this guy in. You can see. So, loop mode. I want to tighten it up now, so I try to decrease the loop, but it doesn't do anything. You can't decrease or expand, so they should definitely change that. It would be really nice, because you can do it with a regular loop. Why can't you do it with a roll? Anyway, sorry, so that's, I think, about it for the touch strip recommendation. I know it's a lot, but I really have high hopes for this controller, and I think they could improve it and make it almost perfect. Okay, so I spoke about relocating those buttons. The jog wheels and the effects portion, I think just adding like an EL or some kind of LED ring around them would be great, because as other people have mentioned in their reviews, you can't see this thing in the dark, with the exception of these lit knobs, which I think are fantastic. The problem is that some of them don't light up past the middle point, so I guess in order to show you you're in the middle, like these gain knobs, you can get the lighting when they're set in the middle, but once you go past, it turns off. For other ones it stays, which is fine, but for like the gain or the EQ knobs, I propose either just leaving the light on the entire time, or if possible, have the light turn green when it's past 50% or red when it's under 50%. That we're getting close to kind of the end of my suggestions. The one last one that I did have was for the effects, because there are so many, it's really hard to remember what you're using. I mean, I guess you could remember the number, but I think it would be really cool if you added another screen here. There used to be a Korg logo here. And again, I know you want to be able to brand your product, but I'm pretty sure you could fit it somewhere else, maybe down here if we're going to extend the size of this thing. But I think to have an actual description of the effect that you're on, so for example, FO1, and then it would say high pass filter or HPF up there, that would be super helpful. Again, I didn't modify this side because I wanted you to see the contrast between how it is and how I'd like it to be. But obviously, if it does get made in the way I'm proposing, everything would match, and you would have everything on this side applied to this side. So a few other things I wanted to mention. Some people have mentioned that the ports here, because as you can see, you have a headphone port and a microphone port. They don't have the smaller input, the regular input that you'd see on, say, a computer, or even here you have the DDJ SX2, and it's got a smaller headphone input as well. I do think it would be nice because, again, this is so perfect just for traveling. Why not have the option for the smaller input? Or if anything, just make the smaller input, because I think that would be more convenient. The other suggestion would be, because, the scratch settings you have right now, as I believe I talked about briefly before, there are two scratch settings. As you can see, the first one, there's a light in the middle, and that's the regular scratch. And then if you press that, it goes into CDJ mode, I think, where you can kind of pitch bend with this. I would say just get rid of the two modes. It's confusing. The two modes are confusing, and the pitch function is good, especially if you were to make these buttons. The pitch bend functions would be perfect alone. So again, I would say don't put anything in that's unnecessary. I think that's basically a summary of my feelings on the Korg. I know I sound really critical, but again, I'm doing this out of love and also probably out of nervousness because this is my first review. But I love this thing. It's not going to replace my DDJ SX2 just yet, because I really think this is the perfect kind of all-in-one unit, and it's good for professional settings or mobile work. But if you're just looking for something to carry around with you to, for making mixes or for smaller parties where you only need an RCA connection, or I guess you could have adapters for XLRs. But anyway, it doesn't have all the functionality it could have, but with my suggestions if you were to implement those for, say, a Kaoss V2. Korg, if you're listening, I'm sure you're not, but I ask that you really consider adding maybe not all, but at least some of these cool features, because it would make it so much better. Anyway, it's a $300 unit. Would I recommend it? Hard to say. It's good for me because, again, this is a secondary unit. I probably wouldn't recommend it over, say, a Mixtrack Pro 3 for someone just starting out because, again, it's not that intuitive and it's a little bit harder to use, and it does require some time. So if you're just looking to get in the game, it might not be for you. If you're looking for something to take around with you, if you travel a lot, really cool and highly recommended. Anyway, that's all from me. Again, I'm 1059. Feel free to check out some of my mixes. I'll post a SoundCloud link in the description and on the video. Thanks again.